Welcome to Barbells and Motherhood. I'm your host, Julianne Bali, owner of Motherhood Barbell. I'm a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, CrossFit Level 1, and mom of 3. On this podcast, we discuss all things pre- and postnatal exercise, bust common myths such as don't lift over 20 pounds, educate about core and pelvic health, and explore all facets of motherhood. If you're a pregnant or postpartum mom that likes to throw around barbells, want to learn more about your pelvic floor and core, and looking for real research-based exercise guidance in any season of motherhood, this podcast is for you. Hello everyone, thank you for another episode of Barbells and Motherhood. Today I have my friend Madison with me here, who is a fellow pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, as well as a lot of other education and training behind her. And so Madison, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Madison Kleckler. I'm a pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. I am a postnatal fitness specialist. I have several other certifications. And I'm also a trained doula. So I help moms improve their pregnancy and postpartum experience, reduce pain and pelvic floor dysfunction in and outside of pregnancy, and overall parent with more ease.
Yes, I would love to talk more about your doula background and how that specifically has really helped to influence your business and as well as the way you support other moms. What is the role that plays?
Yeah, absolutely. To be quite honest, when I got that doula certification, I knew from talking to so many of my clients that the support went beyond, and like the things that people experienced leading up to birth, the things that they had been told, their experience within birth made a huge impact on their lives and kind of left a scar. And so within my work, I was doing a lot of undoing about people's pregnancies and their births. And so I realized there was just so much support that was needed. That being said, afterwards, it was a bumpy road to kind of figure out how to mesh the two businesses. But the thing that came out of it, I think, was being able to be unbiased and empathetic. Because that is something that's really important as a doula, that you don't approach anything with your own bias. And that was something I'd been learning in training as well, but it allowed me to expand that and offer, more support to my clients in a different way.
Oh yeah, that added understanding about birth, I think, is really, really significant. And because, a lot of us are in the pre-postnatal space, we have a lot of training for exercise, but maybe not as much experience about birth itself and labor especially. And so I would love to focus today on a lot of the education that you put out on pain management. We'll start with pain management during pregnancy, because we see that all the time of, hey, I have round ligament pain, or SPD, SDB, SPD. My brain is working, I promise. You know what I'm talking about. And all of these different pains. And I would love to just start with what your basic approach is and where you start with being able to approach a lot of these aches and pains that we are told, oh, it's just part of pregnancy. It'll be fine once you deliver.
Yeah. Oh, that irritates me so much. And I hear it all the time. Like, they just said it was normal, and then I have to deal with it. Or people being told, like, it's just going to get worse, so strap in. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. Because it's so freaking simple. Like, it's alignment and tension and breathing, and then focusing on strengthening areas that tend to have more change than others in pregnancy. I have a biomechanical biology background, so I think that's where I nerd out specifically, is understanding what muscles attach to the pelvis and what muscles actually go through the most change in pregnancy. So strengthening the inner and outer thighs, strengthening the core, and then stretching, not just in the pelvic area, but inner and outer thighs as well, because everything changes and everything shifts and moves. And while these aches and pains are like, yes, they are very common and they are expected. Like, pregnancy is going to be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be increasingly painful, unable to walk, not able to do anything in your daily life. There are super simple things that you can do to ease those types of pain.
So say somebody comes to you and says, I have some really annoying tailbone pain that hurts when I sit, where for just this arbitrary example, what were some of the things that you would give them?
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to start with is pelvic floor relaxation. Your tailbone, your pelvic floor attaches in your tailbone area. So we need to be looking at that first and foremost. It's really common for a lot of pregnant and postpartum individuals to have over tightness in their pelvic floor. So that's the first thing I'm looking at. Do we need to lengthen the pelvic floor, or are there any other indicators that may mean they need to go see a physical therapist, get an assessment, and kind of back up the work that we're doing? And then definitely like the little glutes, the side butt glutes, those need strengthening in tailbone pain situations most of the time. Again, everybody's individual, but in this hypothetical situation, those are the first two things I'm looking at.
So let's talk about round ligament pain, because that's probably, I don't know if I could really generalize it, but probably the biggest complaint during pregnancy is that round ligament pain. I experienced it like hardcore. And some of the things that I did was like, oh, I wore a support band and I would focus on my breathing. But I'm sure there's a lot more that you give, exercise wise, probably to be able to alleviate. So what do you do to approach the round ligament pain?
Yeah, definitely breathing is one of them. And also like the round ligament, if I had a picture, it's like attached into the uterus. So we need to be looking at, it's also attached down to the pelvic area. So we need to be looking at what's going on in there. Specifically, like what's going on with the pelvis. Is it tilted forward or back? And is it creating any tightness in the round ligament that we can loosen up by mobility exercises, or just simply changing the alignment a little bit? That being said, round ligament pain is one of those things that's like you roll over in bed too quick and there it is. So generally just being aware of how fast you're moving and what you're moving, because moving your legs really, really quickly, you may trigger that round ligament pain, and then moving a little bit slower out of that action or activity can help reduce the pain in the moment. Also, massaging it out can be super, super helpful. It like attaches up in here and you can massage down into that area to relieve some pain. Hip flex or stretching too can be really, really helpful.
Oh yes, those hip flexors for sure are a huge part of the puzzle. And then, so let's go to your pregnancies. Did you have any of this information while you were pregnant, or is this something that you found after babies? Both of you have, how many children do you have? I don't remember.
I have 3.
You have 3. So was any of this a part of your 3 pregnancies?
My third, yes.
Yes.
So my first is about to turn 10, which is wild. So 10 years ago, no, I didn't know any of this. I was a student. I was taking advanced anatomy and dissecting cadavers as a very pregnant person. So I knew a lot about the body. And I felt like at that time, I knew so much. Looking back on past me, I was like, I'm so smart. But I had no clue what to expect or what to do. And my birth with her was very traumatic. And so that kind of, we waited 3 years in between all of our babies. They're about 3.5 years apart. And with her birth, it took me a long time to process. And I didn't really do that until I was pregnant with my second. And then I'd become a personal trainer in between the two. So when my oldest was about a year old, that's when I walked into a spin room, fell in love, and that's all she wrote. So when I was pregnant with my second, that's when it clicked that like I didn't know enough about what I was doing, and my doctor didn't know enough about what I was doing. Because when I asked him, he was like, well, you're a trainer, right? And I was like, there was one chapter in my personal training book and it told me to do squats against a wall, and I'm with ball, I'm not. That's not enough. And I'd read here and there about diastasis recti. I didn't know anything about the pelvic floor at the time. And then his birth, it was better, but I could go into a whole story about that. Afterwards is really where I dove into the pre-postnatal stuff, the adding in the pelvic floor stuff, because I was dealing with a lot of pelvic floor dysfunction after him, and back pain and all kinds of pelvic pain. So that's when that kind of stuff started. Wasn't during pregnancy. I had kind of magical unicorn pregnancies. It was afterwards that I really struggled. So in between my second and my third is where I got all that education and was able to implement it in my third pregnancy, which was pretty awesome.
And so then your postpartum after your third, what was that experience like, having, knowledge about the pelvic floor and rehab and all of that now?
It was much smoother for a variety of reasons. First, I treated my postpartum depression and anxiety much earlier. So overall, it was a different experience in a lot of different ways. But I was also able to tame my athleticism, I guess, a little bit. I don't necessarily consider myself an athlete, but I do struggle with athlete brain and with thoughts of like, because during my second pregnancy, I mean, I pushed myself to teach spin until 37 weeks. I went to a spin class the day before my induction. I was lifting heavy all the way throughout. And then afterwards, I got back into spin at 4 weeks postpartum. So, I mean,
oh, gasp.
there was a lot I didn't know and I didn't understand. And with she was born in 2020. So right after that, she was born at end of January 2020. So we went into lockdown really quickly and I wasn't returning to spin. I was planning on not doing that for a longer period of time, but I was kind of forced to anyway, not go back to teaching, which was nice.
Yeah.
But I was able to focus more priority on the pelvic floor and the core work that I needed to the first time that I didn't because I was so focused on how to get back to doing everything that I was doing before because everybody was applauding me and how to not hate my body because at that point I was dealing with a lot of body dysmorphia and I gained weight breastfeeding. So that was a whole nother can of worms. It was really hard to deal with.
Yeah, there are so many things. We just, even with the knowledge, they're so unexpected and so many variables that are possible that sometimes we kind of wish they weren't given to us, but all of that said, being able to at least have more knowledge about the pelvic floor, more experience to know how to navigate the things that come your way and know that there are things that we can do to help them and that you aren't just like stuck like that. You're not broken, even amongst all of the struggles postpartum.
Yeah.
And so let's back up a little bit back into pregnancy because I wanted to talk about one other thing that we hear a lot about pregnancy pain or issues is everything being blamed on relaxin. And your face is telling me like, like, let me tell you. Because it's like, oh, I'm afraid to stretch because I heard because of the relaxin, I'm going to overstretch and I'm going to injure myself. And, even some of that, leads into postpartum because our bodies hormonally are changing. And so I'd love to hear the real lowdown about what's the deal with relaxin.
Yeah, absolutely. Relaxin is a hormone that that helps prepare your body for birth, and it stays in your body after birth as you're breastfeeding as well. And so the biggest problem with people blaming this on relaxin is that it's like you can't control that. There's nothing you can do to remove the relaxin from your body. It's important that it's there. And also people that are like 16 weeks are being told this, and I'm like, then they're going, is my body preparing for birth now? What's it going to feel like later? Like, is it going to just get exponentially worse and my pelvis is going to shatter in two because it's relaxing and I can't do anything about it? And when really it's negligible in the whole thing. Like, yes, it's a factor that we have to think about because it can contribute a little bit, but that doesn't mean that you can't improve the pain until you're done being pregnant or until you're done breastfeeding. Like there are things that you can do while relaxin is going through your body to help ease pain.
So what are some of those things that you can do? Like name a couple.
Yeah. Oh, the stretching thing was a good point. I forgot to address that. So it's funny because everybody is being told to stretch to reduce their pain, but then the relaxant makes their body relaxed. And so they should worry about overstretching. So that's one of the factors, yes. But the problem I see a lot is that we're not backing that up with strength. Like, yeah, you're stretching and you're stretching and you're stretching, but what about the muscles that actually need to be strengthened to support what you're doing stretching wise? So what I focus with in my clients is, yes, a little bit of stretching, but it's mostly mobility exercises and strength exercises to address the weaknesses that can happen in pregnancy, the areas that need support the most, which is your pelvis and your low back and your core, things that are going through tremendous changes in pregnancy and postpartum. And then mobilizing as well. Like I said earlier, inner thighs are a big one. They tend to get really tight in pregnancy just because of the shifts that happen when you're walking into your gait, into your alignment.
So something I notice about myself while I'm pregnant is I get like my mobility like is amazing. And I don't have super bad mobility in general. I'm not flexible, but I have pretty good mobility. But then I always noticed during pregnancy, like, wow, my squat is so much deeper and like I can do all these different things. Is that just because of the fact that I have relaxin and my body is just like opening up and doing more things? Or is it just my body doing something weird?
I mean, it could be partially the relaxant, and it could be like the way that it could be a lot of things, genetics. It could be just the way your body is.
Yeah.
If you have a tendency to have hypermobility to begin with, then that can happen in pregnancy too. Add that relaxant in, and
Yeah.
you've got a little bit of extra mobility. In those cases, because I do have those cases where it's like I'm really mobile, I can stretch really well. Like stretching or mobility isn't the issue; it's the strength that's the
Got
issue.
it. Yeah. Got it. That totally makes sense. And so then going more into a lot of the different things that we see during pregnancy, like we were talking about before with a round ligament pain and sciatica, all of that, and we kind of touched on this before, but, would you say that it is possible to have a pain-free pregnancy completely, or is it more so we can lessen some of the things that we're feeling so that they, like you said, aren't debilitating?
Right. I would love to tell everybody in the world that you can have a pain-free pregnancy, but unfortunately, I cannot. What I can tell you is that you can greatly reduce the impacts that pregnancy has on your body. You can make them much more comfortable. You may not be able to eliminate it at all, but you can make daily life much more enjoyable.
Oh yeah. In a lot of the things you were referring to with like alignment and just our individual tendencies, because I've talked about this in the past that, a lot of the time we want to blame exercise for a lot of our problems or a lot of the reasons that we have symptoms. And that may be true, but also a lot of our other time is spent just living life. And maybe there are different things that we can do to stand differently or walk differently. Like posture is a big thing during pregnancy. Like, are we pushing our hips forward, whatever? And do you talk a lot about that with your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to take an approach of no posture is wrong because that is the truth. Like, we don't want to create that fear around I'm standing wrong, I'm doing this wrong. But that is something that we're looking at pretty heavily. Like, if you're getting pain during walking, what is your alignment looking like? Are you leaning way back into and this is a funny thing on TikTok. I have a video right now about this posture shift, and people are without demoing it, it's hard to see, but shifting forward instead of leaning back into your weight, these things can greatly reduce that pressure up the chain into the pubic bone and just like on your body in general, if we're not talking walking, but we're talking other activities.
Yes, definitely like the shifting of the weight forward. And of course, we love the Brianna Battles cue of tits over toes that we hear all the time, that we use. And I love that you mentioned TikTok because I want to talk a little bit about that. Because if you guys aren't following Madison on TikTok, you need to, because first of all, it's so fun. She posts the most fun things that are all educational about birth and postpartum and all the things, but also just like really big success for you over on TikTok with your audience there and reaching a whole bunch of people that know none of these things and are opening their eyes. Like, what is in your experience on reaching a whole new audience on TikTok?
I mean, it's been pretty incredible. And it's also opened my eyes to really the real challenges that are happening. Like in our world, we get stuck in what we do. I feel like we are able to and see a lot of different things that other people aren't seeing. So it's been really powerful to notice like what really are the struggles that other people are working through, what is going on in people's heads when they see it, because people are not afraid to share their opinion on TikTok. That's one thing I love and I hate about it.
Right? Yes.
But they're not afraid to tell you like, hey, this doesn't feel good. And it's really interesting to see just where people are at in their different spaces and what they experience and what they hear from their providers and from people on social media.
It's so interesting how you're saying that people on TikTok are not afraid to share. That is so true, because I'm still growing on the app, but I have had one video that's gained traction, just one. And it was about how your uterus pushes your baby out, not your pelvic
Saw
floor,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And all of the comments are either, yes, I did this, or why didn't anyone tell me? And then there's a lot of, bless their hearts, trauma coming out in the comments of, this was my birth experience and it was so horrible and it was so hard. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart just like goes out to you. And I'm like, please come to these spaces to learn. And so that, the next time, or even if you don't get it next time, you can know that you didn't do anything wrong, or that you can learn more. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that in your comment section too.
Yeah, absolutely. And my comment section is sometimes like a free for all of people just. I have this one video recently. It's demonstrating a mobility exercise, and it's a quadruped rock. And the comments went in a whole different direction than I thought they were going to go. It's hilarious.
So funny.
But yeah, I mean, it's people sharing their story. It's hard. And it's a beautiful thing. Like, I'm glad that they're getting it out there, because that's the most important part. You can't keep it inside. You need to get it out there, but also just realizing how shitty, excuse me, the healthcare is out there,
right,
for women, for pregnant postpartum individuals. It sucks out there.
Yeah, they really, come out of the woodwork on TikTok, and even more so, I feel like, than Instagram. Instagram, you get, I don't know, I get those comments very infrequently, but then TikTok, everyone's just like, I feel safe here and I'm just going to tell you everything. And I think that a lot of that, like you were saying, that is beautiful and it is hard. And so I love that you've been able to use your platform to be able to reach more of these people that really need people like you, and be able to help them, be armed with more knowledge and have at least a little bit of a better experience with all the things that we have outside of our control. And so I want to go just finish up with postpartum now, because you talked about a little bit about your postpartum with your third and how it was a lot better of an experience. And now I want to kind of go into some specifics of, we talked about alleviating some pain during pregnancy. What are some of the things that we can do to alleviate a lot of the aches and pains that come from just having a baby?
Mm-hmm. First and foremost, get started on the core and pelvic floor recovery work as soon as you feel able. I'm not going to say right off the bat, everybody has a different birth experience. Everybody needs their own time. But I think a really common misconception is that you should absolutely do nothing but walk in that first 6 weeks. And walking is actually a little bit harder on your pelvic floor than you think it is. Walking long distances in that early 6 weeks, there are way better things that you can be doing to prioritize and promote core and pelvic floor healing early on after birth. And again, the 3 tiers that I talked about earlier: stretching, mobility, strength. And you can start that strength work earlier than 6 weeks postpartum, earlier than you're all clear, as long as A, you feel comfortable doing it and you're ready, and B, you have a really good plan and somebody to support you that you can talk to, and that any of the signs that may be popping up that say you're overdoing it. Like, we're not going 0 to 100 here. We're going 0 to 5% to 10% and taking those little tiny percentage steps to get back into activity safely. That's the thing that I've seen impact my clients the most and help with the aches and pains. They are going to pop up again. Can we have a pain-free postpartum experience? I would love to say yes, but probably not. Your body's changing in huge ways, and the demands on your body are astronomical. Like, you're carrying around a human who can't carry themselves. Like, it just is. So a lot of it you can't fully alleviate, but you can help, reduce it and make life more comfortable.
Yeah, one of the things that I wish that somebody had told me about postpartum, not even just the pelvic floor category, is just stretching and mobility for my aching body from feeding my baby, especially because I'm sore postpartum. No matter how I feed my baby, no matter how fit I am or whatever, I just get so sore the first couple of weeks, especially my shoulders, because we are a bed sharing family, and it's something that I love and it works well for us, but that introduces some serious aches and pains the first couple of weeks of, the way I'm feeding and my arm and like my shoulders, they get really stiff, And so that was something I wish that somebody would have told me, be like, hey, you may get sore from the demands on your body that you've never had before, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I bed shared most of the time with my babies because they just like, let's face it, with my third, I was like, I got nothing left. You're just
Right?
coming inside with me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So
We could have a whole episode on that, but yeah.
Right. The shoulder pain is unreal. And I'm back again with it. I dealt with that pain again. I think it was probably like 6 months ago because toddlers, like it's the same. You're carrying a toddler. And my son was really bad about this. So I had shoulder pain for like a year and a half, I swear, straight. And I got a massage every week and I did all of the stuff, but it was just like he wouldn't hold on with anything. And so it was all my shoulder doing the work. And so, yeah, I mean, just the demands on your body that, and even later than that, newborn, early postpartum period, I think we need to talk about this more. Like your body's going through a whole lot of stuff. Plantar fasciitis is really common. I've gotten a lot of questions about that recently. Like foot pain and hip pain, knee pain, really common in that postpartum period. I remember I would wake up and like go to feed the baby and I would hobble to her room. My foot hurt so bad.
Right. It's all these other parts of the body that I'm always so focused on my pelvic floor and my core. Time to rehab my pelvic floor and my core. And then I'm having like nerve issues in my legs that my PT is helping me relieve. And my ankles are just like gone. But, they are having issues. And this very recent postpartum, as you know, I'm 9 months postpartum currently. I've never had this before. I'm obviously, I work out, I'm strong, whatever. But this postpartum, I did the weirdest thing immediately postpartum to like compensate for my back and my core or whatever. Instead of like hinging properly or squatting down or whatever, I like buckled my knees and did like this weird lean over thing to like compensate. And now I am fine-ish now, but I find myself catching myself doing this same weird pattern because it was like some way my body was compensating to try to get done what I needed to. And so I was like, why is this happening? And why am I doing this? And now I'm having to correct it. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with my pelvic floor, and my core. Maybe it does, but it is just like all these weird things that, that you have to figure out how to navigate that are so unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do find that with my clients and potential clients as well, like they are so focused on their core and their pelvic floor that it's like they're almost ignoring the fact that full body strength is going to help more than those core and pelvic floor recovery exercises, because those are like, they're not meant to take you, they're not meant for you to do for 3 months and then just jump back into whatever you want to do. And that's a really common misconception as well. It's like, if I do the set amount of core and pelvic floor exercises, then I'll be fine for the long haul, but yes, it's important to keep up with those things, but we're talking more of the long term, dealing with these aches and pains that pop up in pregnancy and in postpartum. Those are actually kind of the most important issues. Sorry about my dogs.
Oh, I can't hear them, so it's okay.
Good. I mean, in the long term, that's what makes life easier as a mom.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely what I preach all the time, of like total body strengthening. People like, what should I focus on? What do I need to do? I'm like, you need to lift weights and be strong, like your whole body. And the core work is important, and like it is a part of the puzzle. And pelvic floor quote exercises, more like awareness, whatever, is so important to be able to understand how it works as a system. But overall, what you're looking for is strength.
Yep.
Yeah. So love this so much. Love that we've been able to discuss all of these things. And I would love for you to share where we can find you online and kind of some of the offers that you have out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at madison.kleckler on Instagram and on TikTok. I'm also on Pinterest, out there in the Pinterest world. I think the same name. I haven't posted on there in quite some time, but got some good information. I also have a blog at madisonkleckler.com if you want to hop over there and read all kinds of information about birth and pregnancy and reducing pain. right now, I have a birth prep challenge going, which is pretty awesome. I have 2 signature programs, the Empowered Pregnancy Project and the Powerful Postpartum Body Project. And part of what I do is, help people ease pregnancy aches and pains and have better experiences overall. So I do a lot of work in my free Facebook group running challenges to help people get started and just feel connected and empowered.
That's what we want for all moms. We are all on the same journey and the same team to be able to bring more empowerment to all of you. And I can't thank you enough, Madison, for sharing with us today. And you guys go check her out. She has amazing resources. Thank you so much, Madison.
Thank you so much for having me.